Hello, this is David Britt again. I want to talk a little bit about course projects. You'll notice under Course Home, down at the bottom, there's a tab called Course Project. And so the course project concept we use in almost every course in this degree program. The reason that we do that is because it's really about applied learning. It's about taking particular concepts and demonstrating a working knowledge and working understanding of those particular concepts. Now, the course project plan that we put together for, again, the majority of these courses in this degree program is considered a cumulative course project. Now, by that, I simply mean that rather than just doing one big paper that's turned in once, you'll do one big paper that's turned in a series of cumulative steps. And so the method to the madness behind that is that whenever I was in my undergraduate and graduate work, I had a professor one time who assigned a course project, and I worked on it through the entire class period and then turned it in the last week. Well, the problem with that is that when you turn it in the last week of the course, you kind of cross your fingers and hope and pray that it's exactly what he or she was looking for. And so I don't think that's a really good approach to take in a mentoring, guiding environment from a faculty perspective. And so what we've done is we've split those into three different components. Now, part one of the course project in this particular course, which is Foundations of Problem-Based Thinking, is developing a project outline. Think about this. Anytime you start a project at work or you start a home project, you kind of need to know where you're going before you get started. And so I'm a big person with outlines, and so outlines are really critical, I believe, to make sure that you follow and focus on all the key components that are needed. So even though the course project outline is due in lesson 2, you really need to understand what's expected in part 2 and what's expected in part 3, or you can't develop your outline. And so part 2 is just simply developing an outline. The great thing about this is you're going to submit that project outline to me at the end of lesson 2. I'm going to take a look at it, I'm going to grade it, I'm going to make some comments on it, and I'm going to send it back to you to make sure that you're on the right track. If there are things that I think you did great, I'm going to tell you. If there are things that I think you omitted that could be added to put strength behind your paper, I'm going to give you those comments as well. And again, the key is you're going to find that out at the end of lesson 2 and not at the end of lesson 7. And so the part 1 project outline is due in lesson 2. Now part 2 is due at the end of lesson 4. And in this particular course, you're really developing a problem-solving and critical thinking analysis based upon a story that you're reading. And so each one of these bullet points that are listed in here identify key things that are to be included in the paper as you put them together. Now, much the same as at the end of lesson 2, you're going to submit part 2 of your paper at the end of lesson 4. I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to tell you the great things that I liked about it. I'm going to tell you some things that I think you could have added to make it much more relevant, substantive. And I'm also going to give you tips on APA, formatting, flow, those types of things, so that, again, you're going to find that out in lesson 4 and not at the end of lesson 7. The same process will take place in lesson 7, but the great thing is all the comments that I made on your work in lesson 4, at the end of lesson 4, you're going to be able to correct by the time you add to it your content for part 3, which is in lesson 7. Again, each one of the bullets really identify what I'm looking for in the particular paper. And then at the end of lesson 7, you're going to submit that. And so when you submit that, it's going to be one big paper. And it's going to include all the content from lesson 4, hopefully that's been corrected and enhanced based upon my suggestions. And then it'll include the new content that you have in lesson 7. The submission requirements are down here. It must follow APA, must have a cover page, must have an introduction, must have headings in the body, a conclusion, and a reference page. I'm really not a big fan of identifying the number of pages, but students always ask, so the paper should be between 21 to 24 pages in length. What I will tell you is I much prefer that you write enough to clearly articulate your views, your ideas on those. Some students it's 18 pages, some students it's 30. But again, I want to make sure that you really focus on the applied outcomes on that and not necessarily just writing for the sake of filling up pages. You'll submit that in your Dropbox at the end of each indicated session. So lesson 2, you'll have a submission of the outline. Lesson 4, you'll submit part 2 in the Dropbox, and lesson 7, you'll submit part 3 in the Dropbox. And then this is a real key one. A minimum of 9 peer-reviewed sources must be used for the entire project. You're going to learn about that in the announcement section. You see an announcement that I placed in there about research methodologies. You will go to the CSU online library. I have some tutorials already in that announcement to help you out with those. But it's really critical to make sure that you back up your opinions with support, and those will be very critical for you. Now, the one thing that I noted in a previous tutorial that you may have forgotten, up here in doc sharing, there is something that I listed here called Amina's Story Sample Outline. So if you go back to part 1 of this, I'm talking about a project outline. That Amina's Story Sample Outline can be used, adapted to supply your project outline, but what I tried to do with it was just to highlight some of the key things that you may want to talk about in your paper as you go forward. But again, it's really up to you to take what I'm asking for here, to put them together in a format that flows very well, that clearly articulates your thoughts from a reader perspective on that, and again, based upon the story that is presented to you through this. So, if you have any questions at all about the course project, what I'm looking for, please make sure that you give me a call.